Research that resonates.
Schweizer has not been wrong on any of his years and years of reporting on the Bidens.
Investigations that matter.
If your last name wasn't Biden, do you think you would have been asked to be on the board of 𝑏𝒂?
I don't know. Probably not. But that's, I don't think that there's a lot of things that would have happened in my life that if my last name wasn't Biden.
The only entities, the only people that would report on this, and Peter Schweizer, who deserves a Medal of Freedom, in my view.
This is The Drill Down with Peter Schweizer.
Hi, this is Peter Schweizer, and welcome to The Drill Down, where we relentlessly expose cronyism, corruption, and the abuse of power in Washington, D.C. The co-host of this program, 𝐃𝐫𝐢𝐥𝐿. Eric, we are on the verge of the holiday season, and today we're going to have a little bit of a different podcast because we're going to get maybe a little bit more of our artistic side.
Which terrifies me because I've seen your artistic instincts, and let's just say they are avant-garde. No, it's a holiday season. We're going to talk a little art because we're going to talk to an artist that we have known for some time.
More than 20 years.
More than 20 years. If you are familiar with Peter's book and Peter's work and the work that we do at the Government Accountability Institute, you may be familiar with the Clinton Cash book, but there's a Clinton Cash documentary. There's the Creepy Line documentary. There's the Clinton Cash graphic novel. The person that was instrumental in the creation of all those things and others, Mr. Dan Fleuette, a.k.a. Riz.
Yeah, Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. So glad to be here. And, Eric, it goes back a little further than that. It goes back to Steve Bannon's first film called Reagan's War, or In the Face of Evil.
Yeah.
Reagan's War in Word and Deed, which was a fantastic book. And I think I told you one time, Peter, that it was responsible for my conversion from Art School Lunatic to more conservative filmmaker.
Oh, wow.
So I have you to thank for that. Yeah.
Well,
it really opened my eyes to the foolishness I was being exposed to.
Well, I'm honored to hear that. You and I have known each other for more than 20 years. When we met, you were working for a production company up in the Baltimore area. It was working on this film project, and I knew you as an artist, and involved in filmmaking. And you have this new book out. This is the reason we wanted to have you on. I mean, we're going down memory lane, but this terrific book called Rebels, Rogues, and Outlaws. It's a pictorial history of the war room. So you, are one of Steve Bannon's close aides. That's when we met back in the day. So you've been a lot involved in the war room and some other political activities, but you maintained this artistic side, and you did this amazing thing. You started taking pictures of all the guests that appeared on this program, and the result is this great picture book. So tell us about the inspiration behind it and the collection. Because, you've got people in here that are probably going to be in Donald Trump's cabinet. There are frankly also some people in here who are going to go to jail. So it's an interesting collection of people.
Yeah, I think there would be more jail people had Donald Trump not won in November. So, yeah, the history's still being written on that, but we'll see. But you're right. Yeah, there's a more than a few cabinet members, or at least nominees, that are in there. That I was fortunate enough to shoot for this project. And, I like to say that the project, it never started off as being a book, and, you see what it is. And I'm incredibly proud of it and super happy with the way that it turned out, and for the publisher for really going the extra mile for me. And, they just did such a phenomenal job on the printing and the choice of paper and the whole thing. I never had to fight them even one time on doing that. They saw the value in doing it, but it was essentially, you talk about it. I was the original producer of War Room. I'd been working with Steve Bannon since 2003. And that was, really our latest project was starting up the War Room impeachment. And my background, which he never knew, and frankly, most people didn't, was in photography. And I had, kind of dropped that in favor of doing more film work. And just something in me just decided that I wanted to get back into photography. And primarily what I always did was portrait photography. And so we had people coming through the studio, and I would kind of grab them after their hits and said, "Hey, you guys sit here and we're going to do this." And it eventually transformed into this book. It just was sort of an organic undertaking. ultimately it became the book, and very grateful for the people that, particularly in the early days as I was working through my style and a few fumbles along the way. But yeah, that's kind of how it evolved. It was just a sort of organic thing that ultimately became this book.
Yeah, the book I think is significant for a few reasons, and you and I spoke in Washington, D.C. not too long ago when you gave me a copy of the book, which is awesome, and it does some fun things. I think it's high art in a conservative media space, which is quite unusual. But more than anything, Dan, what I'm impressed with is what the book represents. And I was talking to Peter about this, and you and I haven't spoken about this, but I saw an interview that Mitt Romney did with Jake Tapper not too long ago, and Mitt Romney was talking about how he fundamentally disagreed with the direction of the country in terms of having Donald Trump be reelected, and he goes, "But I'm not used to. I'm quite comfortable. I'm quite used to being on the outskirts of where people are. I've never had a hard time being an outcast that way." And I thought, Mitt Romney thinks of himself as a rebel, as a Republican. He does. And maybe at the Romney family gatherings, when he has one of those Heineken NAs, he is. But I don't think that the country is actually now being run by actual rebels and rogues and outlaws, and he's being run by the people you have in this book. And I just think this book is significant because it symbolizes we've gone a different way. And so I guess you have 100 people in this dang book, and everybody from Steve Bannon to RFK Jr. to Tulsi. So people are in the cabinet, but then there's filmmakers, there's conservative commentators. What's one thing you think they have in common? And what does it say about who we are as a country that these are the people that we now have chosen to elevate and help follow in some sense?
Yeah, I think you just nailed it, Eric. I don't think Mitt Romney would have made the cut when it comes to it. The underlying principle of the whole thing really is a spirit of rebellion. And look, they're called outlaws in the book, but are they really? In the current environment, and certainly I think we're seeing a bit of a renaissance and a move away from that. But the last few years have not been kind to our people in our movement. It really represents a homage to them, and so the spirit that runs through them are people who refuse to bow down to political correctness or the current fads that are going on. The thing that comes to mind for me, which was really most inspiring, was particularly during the COVID days, and how when people spoke out against getting vaccinated or against the 6 feet rules, or just the whole, even the origins of it. These people were not allowed to speak on major news platforms. They were canceled off of big tech, X at the time, which was Twitter. They cut them out. Think again when the Hunter Biden laptop story came out, when people tried to share that. Well, they could come on to War Room, and we kind of led the charge, quite frankly, in exposing that. But people try to share anything that we did, or the New York Post story that kind of broke the whole thing. It was shut down, and the people were canceled. People were debanked. People lost family, friends. I mean, it was incredible, and to witness that, and to really be inspired by the people who said, I am a truth seeker, I'm a truth teller, and I'm going to stand my ground. And, much like you guys do over there at GAI, it's important work, but it's not for everybody. Yeah. A lot of people won't do this. And faced with the realities of, hey, you're getting a vax or you're going to lose your job. I got a family, I got a wife and kids I got to take care of. And they put the truth above all those considerations. And to me, that's incredibly inspiring. And that's the rebel spirit, I think, that runs through the entire book. And it's certainly the thing that inspired me. and the thing that I wanted to capture in all of them, whether it's the COVID stuff or anything else. But I don't think Mitt Romney quite rises to that level.
No, Mitt Romney, you could have taken his picture getting the vax with a mask on, I think.
Right.
But I think you're right. I mean, you do capture it. When I would encourage everybody to get a copy of this book. It's a great gift. It's a visual gift with these photographs. And these are just some of the people that Dan has found these great sort of candid, wonderful shots of. Of course, Steve Bannon, Congressman Matt Gaetz is in here, Frank Gaffney, David Bratt, former member of Congress, Congressman Corey Mills and Laura Boebert, Seb Gorka, Nigel Farage. The list goes on and on and on. And these are just wonderful, terrific pictorials of these individuals that people are so familiar with them. They get to see a different side of them. I'm not going to ask you who was the worst person to take a picture with, and I'm not going to ask who was the best, but can you give us some examples of ones that you think really sort of captured a side of the person you were photographing that other people didn't see? One of your favorite pictures, for example, that results from this enormous collection of photographs.
Oh, that's such a tough question to answer. But, there were a couple that were tough. First of all, a lot of people certainly didn't know me, don't know what the hell I'm doing. We want to go here and take some pictures. And then I'd start with, doing some crazy angles or asking them to do some funky things. And it was a little outside of maybe their comfort zone. But to their credit, they hung in there and allowed me, for the most part, to capture the things that I wanted to. Guys like, it's funny because when I first started, I was actually very intimidated by shooting women, because if you've ever tried to take an Insta photograph of your loved one, if it doesn't turn out well, you could be in some trouble.
That's true. It's like a highly personal level of scorn that's directed at you. It's clearly the photographer's fault.
It's no joke. It's no joke. And they don't have the option to delete like they do on the spot. So, but I found actually as time went on that the women were actually incredibly easy to photograph, because once they felt comfortable enough to sit in the session and start to trust me a little bit, they really opened up and blossomed. And the thing about shooting women versus men is they will allow you to shoot things that men will never do. And they can touch levels that men will never touch. Yeah. And it became really actually very freeing to be able to shoot them that way. And people like Laura Loomer come to mind. You have a certain vision or understanding of her, and then she arrived at the shoot just on point. She just had everything in place, and she was very open and free, allowed me to do what I wanted. That was a really fun shoot. And then guys like Ķēn came in. You know him from Citizen Free Press. He came in and he was a lot of fun. He had a lot of energy, and it was great. I wouldn't say there were really any bad shoots. There were a couple people that really hate to get their portrait taken, sure, and that made it a little bit difficult. Particularly, I thought it was interesting in the sense that these are guys that are in front of the camera all day long. They talk to crowds all day long, every day of their life. Yet you sit them down in front of a still photographer, and they just don't like it, and it was really uncomfortable. Sometimes you could even feel it. So those were the toughest ones, but those were actually some of the more surprising ones, because they just are always in front of camera. So I thought that was an interesting dynamic. Guys like Charlie Kirk hates getting his portrait taken, but I think I came away with like some things that he can be proud of, and certainly I am. But yeah, it was each one. I got a story for every single shoot, and everyone was really a pleasure for me to shoot. I know I got to shoot Peter Schweizer one day, and I hope you found good value in those. Although Peter, due to photographer, didn't get to make the cut to the book, which I'm eternally sorry for, but we'll get you in volume 2. But yeah, they were all just a ton of fun.
Was I rejected on aesthetic grounds? I mean, let's just be honest.
No, absolutely not. Well, look, the first criteria for the book was that you had to be on War Room, and we haven't gotten you on just yet, so we're going to have to fix that.
Actually, I want to ask about, do you like getting your picture taken?
Well, with Dan's very good. I will say this is to your credit. You're very good at making people feel relaxed. Now, I've known you for 20 years, but I can imagine somebody who doesn't know Dan, who says, "Oh, I'm going to take these pictures and I'm going to kind of take this, picture from down below." There's a lot of trust involved there, but if it's somebody I don't know, I don't like it. If I know them, I don't mind it.
Well, Dan, I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job, because you did do the book, and the book is awesome. But when you refer to yourself as a former art school lunatic, which I think we should put as your lower third for the video of this podcast, by the way, and you're like, no, I'm just the guy that hangs out at the War Room and takes pictures of everybody. It's the weird giggle that I think throws people off. So maybe edit that in some way, and
you guys are making me nervous.
What's fun about it is we've known Dan for so long, and Dan's nickname actually is Riz. And I was joking with him because Riz is now a word that a lot of people use in a different context. So Dan went by Riz before Riz was a thing.
Before it was cool.
Yeah. And so, but now
trendsetter.
He is a trendsetter. But Dan, you actually said a thing to me when we talked about this project, and I was impressed by 2 things in this, but one of which is, I'll just ask you about this one first, Alex Jones. So the point is, you have people in here who aren't just rebels, rogues, and outlaws in a positive sense. By definition, if you're a rebel, you're a rogue, you're an outlaw, there's people who are highly critical of you. Yeah. And there's a lot of people who have endured a lot of negative publicity and have a very negative reputation. And I would say Alex Jones, in some circles, is one of those people. And here's a guy who's been sued by families and has had some of the worst things you can accuse somebody of. And you found a way to elevate his humanity. I mean, and you saw the best in somebody. And so I think you have this redemptive eye that is actually maybe one of the more positive characters you can have as just a human being. What was that like for you? Because I know you've talked about some of the, did it matter to you in terms of hey, here's somebody who's got a positive reputation, here's somebody who's a little more controversial, and what was your kind of goal based on who they were when they sat down for you?
Yeah. That is a great question, and I paid that no mind at all. It was my job, actually, to capture a moment in time. And there's something about these people, like you mentioned Alex Jones. Alex Jones has a lot of enemies. Alex Jones has a lot of friends, too. And I tried to capture, I don't want to capture necessarily the controversy, but I want to capture the spirit of the individual. It's not up to me to make value judgments on these people, other than why did they merit inclusion in a book about rebels. And it's funny that you bring up Alex Jones, because the day that I shot Alex Jones was the day after he got his first ridiculous judgment against him. And I fully expected that he was going to pull out. I was sure that he was not going to be available for that shoot. But to his eternal credit, he showed up. He showed up, and he's another one who hates getting his portrait taken. And so, those two things together, him just showing up and he says, whatever you need, for as long as you need me, I'm here. And I thought that was incredibly gracious of him. And it was that kind of thing that I wanted to capture. Who is Alex Jones behind or beyond who we see on, certainly on news clips when his distractors or detractors want to condemn him. But who is it? Who's this guy? What is that fire in him that burns so brightly that he has no choice but to do these things? That to me is infinitely more interesting interesting than what pundits want to say about him. And certainly I don't trust anything that the legacy media says really about anything anyway. So I'm not going to go filter my experience through anything that I've heard or read before. I want to see, I had met him real briefly, but I didn't really know him. And so I wanted to see who is he and let the shoot be what it was and who it was. And that was really my approach to every single person that I shot. Even if whether I knew them or didn't know. And in fact, some of my favorite spreads in the book are people who I never knew before. Never had met them before they sat in front of my camera. And that was my first time introducing them. So there's a lot of sort of engagement and a lot of fun for me, quite frankly, in exploring this with a blank canvas, because I just don't know. And let's see what we see. Can I capture something, an essence about this person just by, my interaction with them at the time? And Alex Jones certainly was in there, and I got nothing but respect for him for doing it, and certainly for the things that he's been able to accomplish over the years.
Well, that's what an artist is supposed to do, right? Capture a person. We're talking with Dan Fleuette, a self-described art school lunatic, previous art school lunatic. We've known Dan for 20 years in many ways. He's produced this really terrific book, Rebels, Rogues, and Outlaws. It's from Skyhorse. It's really intimate, wonderful photographs of all kinds of familiar faces. They are disarmed. They are relaxed. They are in very, very interesting positions. You really see the expressions on their faces, etc. I highly recommend it. It's Christmas time and make a great book gift for anybody. Dan, if people want to pick up a copy of this book, what is the easiest way to do it?
Probably just to go to your favorite online bookseller, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, wherever it suits your fancy. And it's easy enough to find there. And if you're on the fence with it, maybe go scroll through some Amazon reviews, which have been absolutely incredible and humbling, quite frankly. But the easiest way, is hit one of those. We still haven't reached the stage where art like this is going to make it into bookstores. They're a little hesitant to put something like this out because they don't, I think they consider it apolitical. And sort of right-wing political. I wish that they would view it as a standalone piece of art rather than bring their preconceptions to it, because I think people will actually be very surprised. Certainly in the write-ups and the way that I approach the photography, I try to be way more insightful and capture, who these people are. And we talk about everything from, God and angels and demons to, absurdities in the art world and all kinds of things. So we touch on a lot of topics and not really bios of these people. So, I wish that it would be seen and taken and judged for what it is, just as an art book. But, this is the world we live in. But yeah, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, all easy places to find it. I'm told it makes a fantastic Christmas gift by people who have sent it for Christmas gifts.
I would echo that as well. I think it's a fantastic gift, and it's a different type of book that you would associate with these sorts of people. Eric, your final thoughts?
Yeah, well, I'll just say he mentioned the write-ups, and I know that Dan is actually quite proud. He didn't mention it, but he's the one, he wrote all the descriptions of the people. And so he spent a lot of time and effort. I know this book took you 5 years to complete, which is, this is a real piece of art. You mentioned Instagram. I think we live in this world where we're used to getting things so quickly. Content is created instantaneously. This is a throwback piece of actual art that took 5 years to do. You put a lot of time and effort and thought into not just the descriptions of the people, but the quotes that go with them. And so I just want to say congratulations, man. I know you gave it to me. You told me how hard you'd worked at it, and it does reflect that. So it's a great book. We all know what it's like to work and produce a book, and I just wish you the best of luck and Merry Christmas, dude.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you guys very much, man. It's been such a treat being on with you guys. So thank you very much, and thanks for your kind words. And I hope your audience really enjoys it.
I think they will. And Dan, thanks for joining us. And we appreciate the audience, as always, for tuning in. We appreciate it. We know your time is valuable. You can find out more about the work we do at thedrilldown.com. And of course, you can subscribe to this podcast wherever fine podcasts are located. Until next time, Merry Christmas.